Okay, so we've got a bucket. Super exciting so far. Let's make something out of this bucket. And I've got a couple of ideas here. And basically what I'm going to go for is I'm going to go for somewhat of a planter pot. I'm going to have it look to be like it's made from stone. The whole thing will be pretty heavy, but like light enough to still move it around if need be. Let's go ahead and remove this. So I'm just going to record the whole process here. I mean, I could just tell you about it in probably 5 minutes and you'd probably get what I'm talking about. But let's just go ahead and make the entire thing together. Let's just go ahead and make the entire thing together. I think that'll go a long way towards helping you to understand the nuances of the different steps and stuff, because it's like not super complicated, not super difficult, but there's a lot of little learning bits that I've had to pick up along the way in order to arrive at consistently successful product stuff that's not, you know, breaking or falling apart. Ah, it just fell right out of there. Okay, let's get going. Let's put that over there for now. Okay, what am I going to do next here? Need a pencil. Okay, pencil and a marker. Keep all these little pieces. We might actually use these later. What I'm doing here is I'm setting the finished edge of the concrete. I'm going to bring concrete up and I'm going to terminate it flush with the top of this. Then once I'm finished, I can remove the foam and I can have a nice finished top detail on this. I don't want it to kind of be... One of the harder parts of doing what I'm doing here technically is just getting that nice top rounded edge. So I want to make sure I have a really nice finished detail. That's why I'm using this foam block out here. Set it probably, I'm going to call that 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch. 5/8 of an inch proud of the top of the bucket there. That should be sufficient in terms of having some concrete that kind of comes right off that edge and then down. I'm pretty sure I don't need to do this, but there's like a little gap there. And some concrete's going to get down inside, but more than that, I don't want this thing to move around too much once I set it in place here. So I'm just going to give a little bead of silicone to this edge. For shaping the foam, you can use a hot wire, you can use a razor knife, you can use a pull saw or push saw or any other kind of saw for that matter. It kind of makes a big mess. It is what it is. Okay, so I've got a foam base here that I'm going to use, and now I need to attach these layers of foam together. There's a couple of different ways that you could do something like this. They make foam adhesive. You can just buy adhesive and use a caulking gun like I was using and put a bunch on there and put it together, but then you have to wait for it to set up, and it takes a while. Overnight really, and I like to do it quickly when I put these things together and then make changes, and if I want to apply concrete right away, and you can't do that if you're using a foam adhesive. Also, it's very expensive, compared to the methods that I'm going to recommend to use to pin these pieces of foam together. So when you push these common nails through, that's how far in it has to go before you're even making contact with the bottom piece. So you really want to, probably that's the line that you're going to. And to push it in further, I use something like a Red Robertson screwdriver, and you can just kind of press them in, depending on the density of the foam. Sometimes foam is really dense and it's hard to do that with, but as you can see, not really too hard. And it makes a pretty solid connection, and it's super quick, super easy, super cheap. That's my preferred method. Okay. Now before I go and put this thing together, I'm just going to make some slight changes to the shape here. Basically stuff where it's kind of like a full vertical or even undercut. I'm probably just going to cut it down a little bit, cut down that angle. And this facilitates a easier job when I'm applying the next stage, which is the concrete stage, or the finished stage, which is the concrete stage. And it also allows me to have a better quality control. I can keep a uniform thickness of concrete, which allows me to minimize the weight of the piece without compromising or having weak spots in any particular area. It takes practice to kind of get good at that. You can, for now, just throw extra concrete at what you're doing and make sure it's going to be strong enough. It'll probably be a little bit heavier. Like if you were to look at all of the first generation stuff that I made over the years, the first generation stuff was all pretty heavy or kind of broke, because you're learning that fine line. And so the process that you're seeing here is it's a little bit refined. I've done this a bunch of times, so I've kind of whittled this process down to allow me to use the minimum materials, have me achieve a minimum weight for a finished product, product, maximum strength. I mean, but there's no rule book to this, and I certainly don't have all the angles figured out. There's likely that you will find ways that you can improve this process or change it to make it, you know, applicable to your unique application. Right there, okay. This is a galvanized steel reinforcing wire, and you'd find this in the concrete working section of your local hardware store. And I'm going to be adding a steel element to this statue here, a couple of different steel elements actually, and this is the thickest steel. So this is kind of like your rebar, if you would imagine like a traditional concrete application. And I'm really just using this because of the convenience of the shape here. I want to wrap it around and such that it will give me something stable to build my future layers off, because I'm going to have to connect more steel on here. And the plastic, you know, I mean, I can't put hardware into it like I can with the styrofoam. You saw earlier I was using the common nails to press layers together. Well, I don't want to press common nails into this bucket, nor would it work very well. So that's kind of what I'm working on here. What I don't want to have here is too much in the way of gaps. I want the steel not tight to the bucket, but I mean pretty close, because I mean it'd be really easy to have it sitting off 1.25 inches or more, and that's too much. We really want it to be closer than that. Like, take a look how close it is to the bucket there. 1/2 inch maybe, and that will allow me to get some encapsulation, which means the concrete on both sides of the steel to allow the steel to do its thing, increase the tensile strength of this concrete mix. But I don't want my concrete to be too thick, so it's, you know, a little bit of a quality or a tolerance type thing to try to get that steel tight against your form such that you can have thin concrete but still achieve some encapsulation, or it still achieves some encapsulation on the concrete. Just bend a little hook over itself. I don't want the steel extending past the end of the bucket. I want the bucket to be at the end, no steel. Whoops. I knew I should have let that silicone set up, but I'm trying to rush. Okay, time to perform some major surgery. Serves me right for trying to take a shortcut. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Two options that I have here. One, take a break. It's 30 minutes for it to set up. Actually, I think that's a pretty good idea. I could use a break and I'll come back and finish this up. But here's an interesting tidbit that I could have done. I didn't know this, but I didn't used to know this. It was something I learned later in my career. So I have the silicone on here. Let's say I need to work with this. I want it to set up very quickly. Take cornstarch and sprinkle cornstarch on it, and it causes a very fast actuation of the silicone. Make sure you do it in a well-ventilated area. It smells super strong, like very strong, like vinegary silicone smell, but it will cause that to set up right away, and it'll also allow you to set silicone thicker than you would normally run a bead of silicone. Like normally if it's really thick, it skins over and the inside remains liquid, and that's no good. But mixing it with cornstarch or sprinkling cornstarch on it will cause that actuation, that chemical actuation will drastically increase the rate at which that this would set up and allow me to continue working here without doing what I just did, which is turn it upside down and push it down into the bucket. So, you know, do what I say and not what I do, right? I think that's how that goes. Anyway, I'm going to let this set up and we'll come back once I'm not in such imminent danger of getting silicone on everything and making a mess and an embarrassment of myself.